Inflation in August was cooler than expected. This was largely due to lower gasoline prices, especially in Alberta and Saskatchewan. And this was the first month since July of 2021 where if you excluded gasoline, prices still came down, which is a good sign. It means interest rates are working. And I'm going to jump into all the details about what's happening in this video. The definitive guide on how to manage your credit, product, penalty, price in that order. It's never been more important to get your mortgage right. Okay, so welcome back. Inflation rose by 7% in August. This is down from 7.6% in July and is less than the 7.3% expected by most economists, which means interest rates seem to be doing their thing. They seem to be lowering prices. And I'm going to get into all the details of what areas of the economy were hot and which ones slowed down the most. But before we get into it, do me that favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and please hit that like button so more people like you can see this video. And if you're in the market for a mortgage, don't forget about our Secrets Getting the Lowest Interest Rate course, which is available at ratesecrets.ca. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's take a look at the headlines as we like to do. Inflation cooler than expected in August. This is the first time in several months where we haven't seen a headline that was essentially inflation at the highest in a decade or 2 decades or 3 decades. This is the first time in quite some time that it starts to feel like the economy's turning around and like we are getting a little bit of relief from prices. And the basics are this: consumer price index rose by 7%. That's less than the 7.6% last month and the 7.3% expected. The average of the central bank's key measures, which is the core inflation, was up 5.23%. from basically 5.43 in July. So this excludes a lot of things that are very variable in pricing, things like gasoline and food and so on and so forth. And for the most part, this all indicates that we're moving in the right direction. However, you have to keep in mind that this doesn't necessarily mean that the inflation problem is over. It will really be dependent on what happens in the next several months before we can really determine if this is a trend or just a one-off. And this also doesn't mean that the Bank of Canada is going to slow down on cutting rates anytime soon. This will be an indication to them that what they're doing is working, and they may have the desire to keep their foot on the gas pedal in order to get ahead of even worse inflation numbers down the road. Now, I want to show you the actual consumer price index news release. This is from Statistics Canada. If you go to their main website, you will find what's called the daily. It's always there. So here it is, Statistics Canada's main website, and on the left side in the news is the daily. And basically, on a pretty much daily basis, they release some sort of statistics. They've also got job vacancy numbers that are up. They've also got industrial product, raw material price indexes, and so on and so forth. But the one that people are interested right now is the consumer price index. So let's jump into here and take a look at what Stats Canada is saying. Obviously, all the things I just covered are in here. Excluding gasoline, prices rose 6.3% year over year in August. That's down from 6.6% in July. So that means that if you take gasoline out of the equation, other goods and services are actually going down in price. The big things here is transportation was up 10.3%, shelters up 6.6%. And while these numbers seem high, they actually drove the deceleration in consumer prices in August. So in other words, these are up less than they were previously. Now, the one place where prices were still up substantially was in food purchases from stores, which were up 10.8%. This is the fastest pace since August of 1981. So those food prices are still feeling a little bit of pressure. Actually, they're still feeling a lot of pressure. And obviously that's playing out in a lot of people's grocery bills. Now, things like appliances, dishwashers, refrigerators, stoves, those all went up less than previous months, which is a good sign that the durable goods, the things that were hard to get manufactured, are starting to see some relief. Whether this is from demand or supply, I'm guessing it's mostly from a lack of demand due to higher interest rates and less people building properties or doing renovations as a result. Now, in August, wages went up by 5.4%. So what this means is, yes, we have wage inflation. However, it is still less than the actual rate of inflation, which means buying power went down. And therefore, for most Canadians right now, you're being able to purchase less with your dollar. And you have to keep in mind that for the last several years with super low interest rates, we've been able to purchase quite a bit with our dollars, especially considering that most people who qualified for mortgages qualified for substantially less than they would have, let's say, 10 years ago because of the stress test. So that stress test left more money in the pockets of Canadians. However, it was obviously a good tool because when interest rates did go up, it meant that people had qualified for substantially more mortgage than what they actually thought they had. So those 1% increases in interest rates or 2% increases in interest rates for adjustable rate mortgage holders were, by traditional standards, still very much manageable, which means While interest rates may have gone up and your payments may have risen, you can still afford your mortgages. It's just you have to change your lifestyle decisions, which means buying maybe different food, maybe not going out to restaurants as much as before, and basically just having a budget for the first time in a very, very, very long time. Now, again, like we've talked about in other videos, if you've got a fixed rate mortgage, don't think you're out of the woods because at some point your payment's going to reset. It's just a matter of whether it happens while it's happening or whether you're delaying it further down the road. Now, I do want to show you this graph that I very much love. It is very illustrative of what's going on in the economy. So this graph shows where prices are going up and where they were going down in August. And as you can see, overall prices are down. Food is one of three components where obviously prices are up over last year, as is household operations, furnishings, and equipment, and health and personal care. But for the most part, we're seeing pretty much across the board, prices have gone down pretty substantially, especially in this transportation area, which has a lot to do with gas prices. What's interesting is the prices for used cars went down for the first time in quite some time, down 0.7%. So in other words, it was cheaper in August to buy a used car than it was in July. That's really good news because what that tells us is that more new product is getting online and the new product is becoming desirable over the old product. Now, if you look at things like shelter, that's coming down in cost. Look at things like transportation, as mentioned. Recreation, education, and reading is coming down in price. And of course, alcoholic beverages, tobacco, and recreational cannabis are not growing at the same rates they were previously. So for the most part, this is all good news for the economy. What we need to see is we need to see this trend continue. So continue to have prices come down slightly over time. Yes, you can probably expect, as most of the banks are predicting, another 0.75% in interest rate increases by the end of the year. And then hopefully at that point, we're going to see things taper off and things will get largely back to normal. So if you found this video useful, do me that favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Please hit that like button so more people like you can see this video, and we'll see you on the very next one. Cheers.